Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Super Bowl version of Loreweek. I'm your host, Super Bowl Runner. Today we'll be talking about the two teams that are going to be Super Bowling it up. On the one side, we have the viewers who are going to be very interested in trying to see if there's actually any interesting commercials this year, because Lord knows the last couple of years have been really hit or miss of that, and mostly missed, let's be honest ourselves. Then on the other side, we have, of course, the commercial producers who are desperately trying to maintain a significance and relevance in an era that has completely passed them by. Now, this may be a very difficult play, but I believe they're going to go for more ridiculous and stupid gimmicks rather than actually well-designed or crafted stories with regards to their commercials, which is going to lead them to a complete fumble. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a win for nobody. Now, actually, to our real issues? Topics? First and foremost, I just wanted to kind of let you guys know, first of all, yes, we are obviously, in the off chance you have not gotten the message over the last 2 weeks, we are back to full-time streaming. Streaming is awesome. Let's discuss. We're currently going through Resident Evil 2. No, not that Resident Evil 2. The other Resident Evil 2. And what I mentally refer to as Resident Evil 2 PR. Because, by all accounts, it does look like a proper remake. After that, I'm not sure. We might actually not have time to do anything else this week before we get to next Friday, where we're going to be streaming this little-known game called Kingdom Hearts 3, which I'm sure nobody's ever heard of and nobody cares about because you guys voted, if you remember, that we pushed back that premiere run. Now, after that, the very next stream we'll be doing is the Neverwinter Nights lore run, which I've actually already been doing prep work for. That's going to be an interesting one. And then once we finish the Neverwinter Nights lore run, which is going to be Neverwinter Nights, Shadows of Untitled, Hordes of the Underdark, Neverwinter Nights 2, and Mask of the Betrayer, and that's it. We're chopping off at those 5. After that, we will then be like, hoo-ha, and go back to premiere running, because we have a lot of games to stream. I actually have a list of just, like, the next bundle of games to stream. Like, not even the whole list. Just the next priority list. And because I know some people are like, hey, you should totally tell me, like, what's next, I'll just go ahead and give you a hint. It starts with a V, and it involves sucking blood. So that's a thing that we're doing. After that, we'll probably go ahead and do Vermintide, finally. As in Vermintide and then Vermintide 2. So this is like your 4-week warning for anybody who wants to reinstall those. Like I said, we're a bit out, but that's going to happen after Vampire. And then we'll go through a bunch of other games. You know, Frostpunk, Binary Domain, Finding Paradise, Dark Control Origins, Darksiders 3, Ace Combat 7, Dark Messiah of Magic, Hitman 2, 60 Brutal, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Enderall, Starlink, Warhammer Mechanicus, Machinarium, Time Spinner, you know, stuff like that. Anyways, so, not necessarily in that order. We don't have a lot of news to talk about. Oh, I suppose I should mention this while I'm at it. So I haven't 100% decided yet, but I'm considering playing Punch-Out with Micromano. Now, this is going to suck because I'm not exactly bad at Punch-Out, and in fact, I can beat the first 4 bosses blindfolded. 5. I can beat the first 5 bosses blindfolded. Then I start to have issues. Now, Sacred King, he is much better at Punch-Out than me. He's crazy. I don't even want to fight him. Speaking of which, oh yeah, speaking of Anthem, I just want to make this very clear. Anthem is basically funded and ready to go. There have been a lot of people. No, I have not, Plutonia. There have been a lot of people who have put money towards and shown interest in us doing a premiere run of Anthem. I am absolutely 100% not playing Anthem when it comes out. Even though our schedule will probably be freed up by that point, A, I have other things that are technically higher priority, and B, and more importantly, I want to give the game some time for it to patch itself. So we will be premiere running Anthem, but not when it comes out. Thank you very, very much, Micromano, and thank you very, very much, Sacred King 01. As ever, I do much appreciate those subs. Now, Micromano asked me a question. Why does everything suck so bad? It's actually very, very simple. There's these Rax. Rax is why everything sucks so bad. He showed up and he's like, That's true. The Resident Evil 2 remake is not fully funded. We're definitely not... I don't even know how to joke about this. Ocelot apparently hates me. Now Daisuke, oh god damn it, Daisuke. I think I'm saying that right. Because you said it was like Sasuke, but it's like Daisuke. Hang on. So let's see, Rax. First of all, thank you very, very much, Rax. I'll dance with you, and also thank you very, very much. Person whose name I've already screwed up pronouncing several times. Uchiha Daisuke. Putting it towards Enderal. Thank you, both of you, very, very much for your support and your continued efforts and awesomeness. Thank you. What was I saying? Anthem. Oh my god! Apparently I was saying everyone sub! That's what I was saying. Thank you very, very much, Agram76. As ever, I do very much appreciate those subs. I really do. I really do. If you'd like to put that towards anything, just let me know. Oh no, we streamed Resident Evil 2 yesterday, Eshlau. We're probably also streaming it today. We will probably also stream it tomorrow. I'm confused. I do admittedly have a headache. This is one of those wake up with a headache days. Actually, I've been having headache problems for several days now. I'm not 100% sure what's up with this. It could just be stress. Who knows? One of the things I've been considering doing is trying the, whatever they call it, like the bimodal sleep schedule. I haven't 100% decided if I'm going to commit to this yet, because it would be a huge shift, and it would take, I would have to do it for at least a month in order to even try out to see if it was actually a good thing or not. And I don't actually know if it's a good thing or not. You know, I have no way of really telling that. Some of you are probably like, what the hell is that? It's basically, rather than sleeping for 8-hour chunk, sleeping for 2 4-hour chunks. Spread out throughout the day. That's the idea. There are some studies which say that's a good thing, and then there are some studies which say it's not. I have no idea if it'd be a good thing for me. Lord knows I already wake up in the middle of the night several times anyways. Thank you. Nice guy. Like really long naps. Basically, the idea, I've already mapped out the basics. It would be 4 hours of sleep, 1 hour of, like, you know, wake up time, and then stream for 4 hours, I think, and then like a couple hours of self time, and then sleep for 4 hours, and then wake up and have an hour, and then stream for 4 hours, and then have that would be how that would work. Now, see, the thing is, most people don't have a choice here. Most people do not have the option of even trying this, because the real-life work schedule is generated around the 8-hour block, right? The only way I could do this is because I happen to be able to work technically whenever. Now, that would basically mean we would, rather than doing one big chunk of streaming in the day, we would do like a chunk of streaming in the morning, my morning, and then a chunk of streaming at night, my night. The only benefit of this is it would help other people who are in different time zones see me more regularly. The downside is it would make it so that half my content wouldn't be seen regularly by people who, you know, aren't in those time zones. And of course, I have no idea if this works for anyone in general. I'm still not decided on even trying this. It's just something I've been looking into because, well, because I've had sleeping issues since I was a kid. This is not a new problem for me. So let's talk about random news. The Division 2 sent out a thing saying, you know, an advert, basically. You want to see what a real government shutdown looks like? You come play the Division 2. Now, I was like, okay, that's cute. I'm with it. Since, you know, the Division is all about society basically breaking down to the point of near dysfunction and trying to restore it from that. You know, post-apocalypse, you know how it is. And then they apparently walked that back because, oh my god, we didn't want to get political. Now, first of all, I don't think this particular apology was necessary. For those of you not aware, there is a, I think currently, I've lost track because I don't care, a government shutdown going on here in the States. Yes, Lord Harriman. And as a consequence of that government shutdown, you know, Hey! And apparently people decided that this was them making a political statement as they were advertising their game. So, whatever. Apparently it is still going on. I say I don't care, that's not actually an accurate statement, but... Anyways, point being that they walked it back like, we're sorry, we're sorry, we're sorry, and I was just like, really? Okay, sure. Whatever. That's redunculous, but whatever. Because apparently people get upset about everything. Their official statement I'm with, though. Their official statement said, we don't like to make our games political. We're trying to stay as far away from political controversy as possible. And you know what? I thumbs up that. Thank you. Yes, do that. Do more of that. I'm down. There also is rumor going around in the rumor mill about a Switch Mini, which is going to be a thing, apparently. I don't have much to say about that. I have no real interest in a Switch Mini. Like, it's a Switch, but worse and smaller. I don't get that. I am sure there's a market for that. I'm sure there is. But I don't get that. Of all the things to do with the Switch, why make it smaller and worse? And when I say worse, I mean like basically less powerful graphics processor, less powerful CPU, etc. You know, worse hardware, in other words. I don't understand that. This is, of course, still a rumor, but if it's true, I don't get where they're going with that. So, whatever. Bethesda has decided that, you know what? We're tired of people constantly making fun of Fallout 76. For some strange reason, every week there's like another thing wrong with Fallout 76. So anyways, they reintroduced a bug that they'd actually already fixed in a recent patch of Fallout 76. Ask it now, Zoan, so I can jot it down. Anyways... And yeah, I would buy a Switch Pro in a heartbeat. Yeah, I wasn't even going to mention the other bugs. The main one is the main one. The public one is the bobby pins, which they basically increased the weight of to being ridiculous again. Now, for those of you not aware why I'm just rolling my eyes at this, it's like this. Here's your software, okay? We'll do it this way. Here's your software. And you have this software, and then you back it up, and then you're like, okay, we need to go ahead and make a patch, which is going to be this one. So this is based off of this architecture. And then we're going to patch that is based like, this is how you're supposed to do this. However, several companies have multiple teams working on basically patching and fixing at the same time. MMOs, for example, do this consistently. The catch is, usually MMOs have like a separate team or individual whose entire job it is to make sure that the baseline code, which is being worked on for patch A and patch B, lines up. And what happened here with Fallout 76 is they didn't do that. They didn't do their due diligence. So in other words, we've got... What happened was there was this patch, right? This is the one with the bugs. And then they patched it from this patch to here. So patch 1 to patch 2. But they were also working on a patch 3, which was still based on patch 1. Make sense? In other words, they basically leapfrogged and skipped all of the infrastructure and code changes that this second patch did while introducing a third patch because they weren't doing their due diligence. They weren't actually paying attention to where the base core patch files were from. I'd say this is a common problem, but it actually isn't. This is a problem we've had solved since the 90s. At least that I'm aware of. I'm sure we've had it solved since the 70s, actually. So, EA has pulled out of selling loot boxes in Belgium, while we're on this topic. I actually have that one up here. Hang on, where's that news bit? There it is. Now, I wanted to read this one. That's why I have this up. I wanted to read EA's official statement on this, okay? You ready for this? This is great. Wait. We seek to bring choice, fairness, value, and fun to all our players in all our games. In addition to providing players options on how they play, we include pack probabilities in our games for the transparency players want to make informed content choices. While we are taking this action, we do not agree with the Belgian authorities' interpretation of the law. Note they don't say the law, just the interpretation of the law. And we will continue to seek more clarity on the matter as we go forward. The impact of this change is the FIFA Ultimate Team in Belgium is not material to our financial performance. Okay, hang on, let me copy one's question here, because we actually do have a Nintendo question today, so I'll slot it down there with the Nintendo question. There we go. Yeah, I'm committed to democracy, or to the Republic, to democracy! Meanwhile, Sweden is attempting to fine... Oh, you want me to translate into human speak? Oh, yeah, sure. Hang on. We still do not legally agree with what Belgium has ruled, and will probably seek to fight it in the future. This will cause us to take a financial hit, which is bad, and that will cause issues for our investors, and we want to make sure it's very clear that the cause for this investment loss is on Belgium, not EA. That's what that's actually saying. That's trying to cover themselves for the investor report, which is coming like next week, I think. We're very close to a quarterly report. I've lost track of where we're at for that. And that's them basically saying that they do not legally, on paper, actually acquiesce with what they say. They're just bowing for right now. For whatever reason. Exactly, Max Time. I mean, come on. Hazardous wants me to read the last line again. The impact of this change to FIFA Ultimate Team in Belgium is not material to our financial performance. In other words, please don't let our stock drop. Sweden. Right, Sweden. So this is a weird one. Unfortunately, I have not actually been able to read into this more, because there's basically only one specific news tidbit on this, and it's from Sweden. So, whatever. But the Swedish tax agency is going after Blizzard Activision for $397 million. You might be like, why? My first thought when I read this was, oh, so they've recognized that they're a tax haven and they're trying to go after them for that. Okay, I'm on board with that. No, actually, it's something completely different. There was a Swedish company called Midas Player, which we here in the States would actually know about as the King. You've probably heard of them. And Midas Player, back in 2016, was sold to Blizzard Activision for, X amount of money. And what the Swedish tax agency is saying is, well, hang on, we didn't get any money out of that transaction, so we should. Now, this is actually a weird situation. And I'm not really sure, if I'm willing to take a side on this one yet, because there's just not enough actual information right now about this one. Because the Swedish tax agency hasn't said the sale wasn't taxed, which would make sense and be kind of a concrete thing. Instead, they're just saying, we believe value has... In fact, I actually have the article up, don't I? No, I don't. We believe value has been removed from Sweden, and that we need to be compensated for that, is basically what they're saying, which is just weird of a way to go after that. So, I mean, Blizzard Activision could go burn and all that, but I don't understand. I'm not actually with the Swedish tax agency either here. So, we'll see where that goes. We'll see if Blizzard Activision tries to push against that. The weird thing, the really weird thing, is the fact that sale happened almost 3 years ago. It was actually about 2.5 years ago at this point. That makes me even more disinclined towards the Swedish tax agency here than anything else. Anyways, so before we get to Q&A, I do have one actual topic for today. Just the one. Just the one. It's about Metro. Hi, Tazara. Hi, Justin. Hi, everyone who I haven't said hello to yet. You're all awesome. Yes, we're still playing Resident Evil 2 later. So Metro Exodus... You know what? Before I go further, let me read something. I was looking into some information about the Metro Exodus release store thing. Just getting more details, basically. Because I wanted to talk about this. And I noticed that there's a post here on a Reddit thread about this specific issue, which says, and I quote, "Due to the overwhelming amount of aggressive and uncivil comments, we had to lock this thread. We sincerely apologize to the minority attempting to have a civil and reasonable conversation about this sensitive subject." So can I just say, can we just leave the controversy out of this? I'm not sure why people are freaking out about this. Honestly, I don't actually understand why people are getting rancid about this in general. I don't see what there is to be rancid about. This is obviously a messed up situation, and it is obviously on behalf of both Epic Games and Metro. But let's move on here. That's funny, Ethel. I'm sorry, that's not funny. It's actually horrible. So people have asked me several times what my thoughts are on Epic Games' store, and basically all my thoughts are negative. Like, even if it was a good store, which it's not, just to say that as bluntly as possible, it's another one. It's yet another virtual storefront. As I was counting out yesterday, we're up to 6 now. Oh, that could be Volcanto. That could be. I didn't read the entire thread. I did find one really, well, actually 3 very informative posts along here. But the most important thing, so for those of you not aware of what the hell I'm talking about, there's a new game coming out called Metro Exodus, which A, is actually already funded for a premiere run, so I'm kind of locked in on this one. But B, I'm actually interested in because I played Metro something. I don't remember which one. I played Metro something for Rumination this year, and I liked it. Like, it was actually a good game. There were issues with it, of course, but it was definitely in the significantly positive side of the situation. So I'm like, woo, cool, I'm looking forward to the sequel. It looks awesome. I mean, we all, back when we saw it in E3, we were all like, yeah, this looks great. This looks like a good Fallout game, basically. Well, about 2 weeks before Metro Exodus was actually going to go live, okay, apparently it was 2033, so... About 2 weeks before Metro Exodus is going to go live, they just out of nowhere were like, by the way, Metro Exodus will not be coming out on Steam. It will only be coming out on Epic Games Store. Now, for a bit of an asterisk, anybody who had already at that point in time pre-ordered Metro Exodus, those people will still be able to get the game on Steam. They're still honoring those pre-orders. However, speaking as someone who has not yet pre-ordered Metro Exodus, my only option to get this game will be to get it on Epic Games' store. And now let's add a few more asterisks to this. Asterisk number 3, I think, at this point. It's a timed exclusive. In other words, after, I believe, a year. Let me double check here. Yep, February of 2020. So yeah, 1 year from now, it will no longer be exclusive to Epic Games Store, and will be released to other digital distributors like Steam, for example. So, that's a thing. And I guess that's it. So those are all the facts, right? I could do a whole topic about exclusives. You guys know I'm very anti-exclusive. I get a lot of flack for that opinion, and I don't care. But, timed exclusives are probably the best, what's the word? Compromise. Are probably the best overall compromise when it comes to the exclusives thing, as far as I'm concerned. Like, for example, and let me use a direct example. Let's say Mario Odyssey came out on the Nintendo Switch, and then about a year later it came out on PC. Okay. Okay, I'm down with that. Really, I am. And some people think I'm anti-Sony when I go with this whole exclusive rant, and those people are wrong. I am anti-exclusives. I'm willing to go ahead and wait for it to come out in something else, right? I'm with it. I'm with it. Because they still get the benefit of the exclusive. You know, so the actual, let's call it the console, or the store, or whatever, you know, the publisher basically, still gets the value of the exclusive. you know, the initial launches and the initial hype and all that fun stuff. And then other people still get the advantage of not having to buy a system they don't want to or being able to play it in the manner that they want to. And they get more sales because they're releasing it on additional things. Now, there is a downside. There's one downside, because that one downside is the porting. We need to have a team of people who will port things. So you have to spend a little bit more money. It is my opinion that, to use the Mario Odyssey example, that the amount of money and time they would spend porting Mario Odyssey properly to the PC would be gained back and then some by the additional sales on the PC market. Just my opinion. I don't know if that's true or not. I really don't. Because I am not God and don't have infinite perfect information about the reality. I am not an imperial judge. So, this is all just opinion and speculation. But I am at least with the, you know, the timed exclusive thing, because it's basically as good as we're going to get for satisfying all concerned parties. Now we got to talk about Metro specifically, because there's two things to mention about Metro. Point number one, they did this out of nowhere 2 weeks before launch. That's messed up. Like regardless of all other factors, that's messed up. Well, it's just one planet, Inquisitor. So that's an issue. And that's something that is, to be it as bluntly as I possibly can, that's kind of scummy, right? What in God's name were you thinking? I'm going to go ahead and speculate here. See, the one and only value of an exclusive, as far as I am concerned, is when... Okay, let me actually rewind a second. There's two kinds of exclusives, right? There's, this is exclusive to this machine or this store or, you know, whatever, specifically because that we're working with those people, right? And I use Bayonetta 2 as a perfect example of what I'm talking about. It's not the only one. God of War 4 is also a perfect example of what I'm talking about. God of War 4 and Bayonetta 2 were both exclusives in the good sense of the word, right? Because they actually got support from Nintendo and from Sony in order to make the game as good and as proper as they could for that console, right? That's what I call a good exclusive. Then there's bad exclusives. Now, a bad exclusive is when, you know, Company A, I'm not going to name any names because I don't want to be accused of taking sides here, so let's just say Company A walks in and says, hey, I'll give you X money if you only release your game on my thing. In other words, it's a difference between a better crafted product and a product being held hostage. And there is a difference between those two. Yeah, the Nax here is a good example of that. There are several examples of that throughout history. I'm not going to go into specifics, because I don't want to be accused of taking sides. Based on what we see, I would say with 99% certainty that Metro Exodus is the second category. That this is a series which Epic Games said, here's some money, exclusive contract. Especially at the last minute like this, basically. Especially since the game effectively is actually coming out on Steam, technically, for those who've already pre-ordered it. So it's not like there's anything significant about that, right? Right? So that's scummy. And that's not acceptable as far as I'm concerned. That is literally saying, you should be on our system, you should come into our treehouse. Our treehouse is better. Why? Well, because we've got this game here. Why is that game here? Because I gave them some lemonade? Yeah, but why are they there? Because I gave them lemonade. Do I get lemonade if I go there? No! Yeah, Division 2 has also switched to Epic only. At some point or another, I am probably going to have to use Epic Games' store. I don't want to, because everything they've been doing has been kind of crap. Like, every single bit of news about the Epic Games Store has been negative. Right? At least from my perspective. And while I'm on the subject, can I just say, just really quick, one of the things that I find really strange is that all of Epic's advertising, all of their stint, all of their marketing, has been all inclined as if they were the little guys, they're little Mac in Punch-Out! And they're fighting against the big, doomy, you know, Mike Tyson or whatever, which is Steam. Epic Games is a gigantic company. A huge company. Do you know how much people pay them to make games every year? I'm not even counting Fortnite. I was just talking about their frickin' engine. Probably not, Baron. I don't know. It depends. It takes a lot to get on the forbidden list for me. I'm literally just talking about the Unreal Engine. Never mind Fortnite. If it wasn't for exclusive, why? I don't want to get on that topic, Lord Haramont. All I'm going to say is that there is a significant difference in terms of just playing, for example, between an Xbone, a PS4, and a Nintendo Switch. All three of those play differently. Oh, and a PC, while we're on the subject. All four of those play differently. Like, you cannot tell me, because I've seen too many examples, you cannot tell me that if X game came out on everything, that certain people wouldn't say, well, I want to buy it on that system because I prefer that system. Because that actually happens. Look at any Mega Man game that's come out in the last 5 years, because every single one of them has come out on everything, right? And I know plenty of people who will say, well, I'm going to buy that version of that game because that's the thing I want to play it on. Anyways. Moving on. I don't want to get too much into the exclusive argument, because the next thing I want to talk about is even better. I haven't even gotten to the real news yet. This is great. Check this out. I actually screenshotted this. Where is it? Here it is. So, hang on. We need Doomy music. Let me switch to my Doom playlist. Not that Doom, the other Doom. Hang on. There we go. What is Sweet Victory? Psychotic. Oh, my neck. And I quote. So, okay. Actually, no. Before I get to the quote, let me give you some context. They're playing SpongeBob. Wow. Oh, it's a tribute. Okay, that's okay then. The people have been, so after this thing happened, right? After they just did a last-minute switch saying, yeah, we're going to Epic Games, people started review bombing it on Steam. Now, let me just say something really quick here. I do not like review bombing. I don't. I think it's a practice that is abused, to put that as simply as I can. I do not and have not review bombed myself, participated in a review bomb myself, and I never will. However, I understand the upset, and I understand that some people believe that quite a few people believe the only way to make your voice heard is to review bomb. What is review bombing? Okay, so let's say here's a Steam game that's on Metro. I just said that wrong. There's Metro, and it's on Steam, and 2,000 people go to that and just say, basically give it an intentionally bad review in order to make a statement, rather than because the game is bad. That's called review bombing. Review bombing happens on movie stuff, with Rotten Tomatoes, for example, and review bombing happens all the time on Steam. Now, I'm actually with Takoida. Review bombing for a proper reason? Yeah. The problem is it's usually not. There's usually not a good reason for review bombing. It's not the greatest thing. Like I said, I feel like it is a misused tool. Yeah, Amazon.com, that's another one. Amazon also has review bombing happen. By the way, hi, Tittiest Bear. Nobody's excited about Kingdom Hearts 3. Don't be ridiculous. Especially not Rax over there, who I believe has finished it by now. And if he talks about it, I will hunt him down and kill him. So in other words, is this a proper reason? In my opinion, yes. I really do believe that people have a legitimate right to be upset about this. Two big things, okay? They've been advertising Metro on Steam for months. And two, they changed their mind basically at the last minute, 2 weeks before launch with no advance warning. If they had said 3 months ago, we're going to switch this over to the Epic Games Store exclusive right before it launches. Okay. If they had just had it always be exclusive over on Epic Games the entire time, okay. But instead, they were like, hey, screw you. And that's unacceptable, to be just 100% blunt. I'm sure Metro Exodus is going to be a good game. I really am. I'm actually looking forward to playing it. Just not sure when. And as Lucky Gorilla is pointing out, let's call it the extra cut that they would get from Epix, because Epix does charge basically less than Steam, is probably not substantial. I'm telling you, this is of course just speculation, but I am telling you, Epic paid for this exclusive. This is Type 2 exclusive, I am very certain. Anyways, so people started review bombing it. Okay, sure. This leads to this comment from a developer of Metro Exodus. Now, I have a feeling this is not, like this is translated into English, because it doesn't read like someone who is a native English speaker, so forgive me if I stumble over this a little bit. I watched the bubbling. Impressions are twofold. On the one hand, the withdrawal from the stim is ambiguous, so no one has done so sharply, as far as I can tell. This is new, which would cause rejection. Yes, and such a move pulls the need to install an Epic launcher, which would cause some inconvenience to the players, and therefore cause discontent. On the other hand, the reaction of a certain category of players, online and all that, is hardly adequate. It seems that people did not want to play, just waited for a reason to pour out their bile. That is, it turns out that we, the developers, for years have been hard and painful with losses, trying to do something special, but a certain category of players believe that our work is not worth even a couple of minutes to install the launcher. Naturally, it is their life and their right, but then what do they care about Metro? Obviously, it's not interesting to them. I can only say that they are not our players either. They are not interested in our work, which means that, for example, the opinion of such people is not interesting for me either. What is the point to me personally to listen to their opinion? It gets worse. But consider the situation deeper. Someone says that they say, crap Exodus, and the previous games in the series, it'll make the world better. They will put greedy developers in their place. To this, I answer that in a pinch, if at all... Oh, Jesus, this is so badly translated. If all the PC players announce a boycott of the Metro, then the next Metro is definitely not on the PC. To continue. Better or worse, decide for yourself. I personally feel sorry for loyal fans, but my assessment of the work done personally by me and my friends and colleagues will not change this. I firmly know that almost everyone who pours this dirt on the net is also incapable of what we have done and will hopefully do more. And that means they have no idea what they're talking about. Can I just say I hate that argument so much? I want to punch that argument in the face. I get so sick of that argument. The argument, if you're not aware of it, is well, you've never made a movie, so you have no right to be a movie critic. Well, you've never actually, written for a video game, so you have no right to criticize the writing in a video game. That's that argument. I hate that argument. And further, there's a third paragraph. Despite the fact that during development I went through each level of the game hell knows how many times, it is interesting for me to play Metro. I went through the previous parts completely and more than once. And now I'm going to go through the whole PC version to which we make the final touches. For me, this is a tradition. I always repass the game completely before release. Allows you to evaluate the work done. What is it to me? I remember the words of the professor, which I've heard more than once, both from myself and the internet. The game must be made for myself so that you like it first. And only... That's a total mistranslation. And only something begin to understand this fully. No clever man can shake me about the value of the work you have done, and there will always be the disgruntled. It is the Orky argument. Yes, Mike Romano. Hi, Larian. You know what I hate most about that argument? It's a misapplied actual thought. Like, okay, for example, let's say, let me just use a random example here. Let's say that I make internet videos for a living. And let's say that someone who has never made internet videos for a living comes on and says, well, why don't you do this other thing? Now, that person has no idea the kind of work and effort that I put into my show. No offense, of course, but, you know, they don't. And so they are suggesting something that literally will not work. Okay, so I would say, well, hang on, you don't fully understand what I do. This is what I do. That's the core nugget of that argument. A core nugget of logic is the basis of every argumentative fallacy. Because there has to be some core nugget of logic there, because it always puts you on the defensive or destroys any actual possibility of proper discussion, right? The thing that pisses me off so much about it is then they take that and just distend it to the extreme. You know? You have no right to criticize movies. I have been studying and analyzing movies since I was a kid. But because I've never actually made one, and the best part is the logic being stated by that is so threadbare. Because by their own logic, that would mean that if someone was to go out and make a movie, any movie, if someone was to go out and make Sharknado 1, then Shazam! They suddenly and magically gain the ability to have their opinion matter. I'm making my headache worse. So, obviously this one person does not speak for an entire company. But having a developer come out and say, and threaten, let's use the correct terminology here, and threaten to start making their games not come out on PC, I don't have a word for how stupid that is. I don't have a word for how incorrect of an approach that is from a AirPods? No, these are attached. I don't do AirPods. Screw AirPods. From the perspective of customer support, of customer trust, of basic marketing, of public relations, this is just what? You actually okay. Yeah, never let developers get on camera. That's an old rule. That's an old rule. Congratulations, Ice Tray. You can now criticize movies. You know, what's funny is I have worked in television. I've put stuff on a TV station. So I technically can actually criticize TV, apparently. Even though I have been told that because I've never made an episode of Star Trek, I can't criticize Star Trek. I've actually been told that. Oh. Yeah, this is not great, guys. I don't know what we're doing about Metro yet. I mean, this is a premiere run that's been funded for a while. Like, this is an old funded premiere run from, like, early last year. So at this point, I am basically, you know, it is upon me as a content creator to fulfill my obligation of that. And I have no problem doing that. And I will go ahead and install the Epic Game Store if I have to. I don't want to. Because this is bullcrap. I could get it on PS4. No. I would rather not play an FPS without a mouse. So anyways, that's it for news. Let's just move on. Oh, God, hazardous. Yeah, I'm with that. All right, so yeah, let's switch off of news because that's it. I don't have anything else to say there. We'll decide what the hell we're doing about Metro later. Let's hit Q&A. Where's our Q&A stuff? Let me take some notes. Because we have a bunch of questions because we didn't actually take questions last week, so we're basically going through 2 weeks' worth of questions here. That's a good question, Lycon. I have no way of answering that. No, nobody wants to play Kingdom Hearts 3. Terrible game. Nobody cares. So, what do we got? So we've got Mass Effect. You guys like Mass Effect, right? I feel like we've had basically this question before, but whatever. No, I have not, Yudachi, because that is so much of the realm of rumor that I don't even feel like touching that. Wow. You know what's funny? I'm not sure I can call myself a Mass Effect fan. It's the same problem with Ghostbusters. I like 2 Mass Effect games. Someone from BioWare calls you up and offers you the opportunity to reboot Mass Effect 3. You have been offered a role in which you are actively contributing to the development of the story, and you were in charge of you're actually the mainliner of the entire writing team. That's my term, not theirs. You are consulting director, lead writer, etc. No matter what, you have a significant influence. Would you take the position, and what would you do? Bring back the Dark Matter plot. Yeah, I feel like we have to go out of it. Again, whatever. Only 3. You can only reboot 3. How much is EA involved? The EA stops existing. It's not even... The EA isn't even mentioned, Hazardous. I have played approximately 30 minutes of 2 Point Hospital with my niece, Johnny. So I haven't played it on camera at all. I mean, I feel like I've been answering this question for about 7 years. That's why I'm just kind of letting you guys talk. Well, thank you, Lord Harrimont. But yeah, I mean, reduce the number of Reapers, point 1. Make the Reapers defeatable conventionally, but at great cost, point 2. Make the game far more about unifying people, you know, against certain common threats rather than about running around trying to build a stupid thing. Point 3. Make it so that there are, I'm going to say about 5 endings, basically of a gradient. So, like, there's the best ending, there's the worst ending, and then there's the 3 common endings, the ones you're most likely to get, right? And it basically boils down to how good of a job you do, and, this is important, what you did in 1 and 2. Make the choices in 1 and 2 actually have significant impact on 3. There's not all that many choices in 1 and 2, really. So it's not that hard to quantify the major choices from 1 and 2 into 3. Bam. So, choices from 1... So basically, depending on what you do in 1 and 2, and again, I don't know specifics. I'd have to sit down and think about this, and I'm pretty sure I've actually already said this on camera, but, you know, depending on those things, we've got the best ending, the worst ending, and these 3 would be like a variant on each other. They would all be roughly equivalent in terms of, like, quality, like how good they are. It would just be different. Who dies, who is sacrificed, who ends up making it, and who ends up not would vary based on the middling ending. But either way, each of these 3 middle endings would be success. This would be the perfect success, and this would be the failure. You remember when they actually told us, when Mass Effect 3 was coming out, that there was going to be an ending where you just flat out failed to stop the Reapers, and that turned out to be a lie, along with so many other things about the marketing of Mass Effect 3? Leave in the loser ending. Leave in the you failed ending. Not that hard. Do it. And yeah, have an ending with Shepard and Tali on Rannoch on a house they built. They've earned it. Make that something we can earn. Make it something we can build up to and satisfy. God damn it. Yeah, they had to patch in a you failed ending, and they did it so badly that I actually thought it was a success ending instead of a you failed. And then I was told, oh, I'm sorry, no, that's not a you success. That's actually a middle finger to you, screw you ending. Because let's be honest, the failure ending that they patched in was a giant middle finger. Anyways. I love how many people... I know there's chat delay, but I love how many people are bringing up the refusal ending now that I've already addressed that. I don't have anything else to add to this. I've answered this question several times, like I said. All I'm going to say is that I still don't think of the refusal ending as the bad ending. I think of it as the best ending. Not because of what they said, but because of what I say. Because, to be perfectly blunt, even though it is actually disagreed with by the creators, as I've said so many times, canon does not determine my canon. I've said this about many things over the years. So as far as I'm concerned, the refusal ending is the good ending. Because refusal ending is when you refuse to play their game. Right? And after having done so, next time around, they beat the Reapers conventionally, with the aid and assistance of the information we left them, thanks to Liara. And bam! Good ending. Moving on. This question comes from Twitter, so I actually had to write it down here. How many of you guys like Star Trek and superpowers? No, let's it's not really about Star Trek. This is just about superpowers. So, imagine for a second that... There we go. Suddenly, one person in the real life is granted superpowers. This person is immune to every attack and kills with ease, and is chaotic neutral, and uses their powers all the time. They also refuse to join any organization or government. How does the society, governments, and military react to this person? Sorry, I'm chuckling at Paramount there. Yeah, the answer is I don't want to live on this planet anymore. I'm kind of with you on that, honestly. Like, I'm pretty sure that... Yeah, actually, Hancock, that's a great way to put that. I'm pretty sure that the governments and military would constantly try to kill Hancock. Fail, because it's Hancock. And then that would just lead to an ever-escalating thing until eventually it would reach what is effectively a stalemate because at some point or another, Hancock has effectively killed enough of the military that there's not enough military to throw at him. And what we would be left with is a society and a world in which lots and lots of people have died at this supervillain. That's how people would view him, because he had been defending himself from the military. And then he would basically have to go off and try to live on his own, or establish a tyranny. There's only the only two options at that point. This is why you don't go loud if you get superpowers, guys. If you ever get superpowers, if you ever have that kind of a moment, the meteor moment, don't ever use them publicly. Don't ever let anyone know you have those powers, because there is no good answer there. There's no good resultant from going loud with superpowers, okay? I would say Hancock is about half of a very good movie and half of an acceptable movie. That's my opinion, Baron. First half is legitimately good. Second half is acceptable. That's my opinion on that. So, yeah, if I had superpowers, you guys would not know. I may have superpowers right now. You wouldn't know. There's no way to prove anything because I haven't done anything like that. What would probably happen, at least in my estimation, Lord Paramount, is some nation or whatever would be like, okay, you can come here. But remember, part of the question is this person joins no organization or government, so they're on their own. Like, for whatever reason. So at that point, they probably just get a nice paycheck in, I don't know, Sweden or something. I'm not even touching the religious side of that. I am not even touching that. If someone like John Hancock was actually roaming around the world, no, we're not talking about that. Yeah, the Incredible Hulk premise. Leave me alone. That is true. It's an old premise. I don't have much else to say about that, so let's talk about Star Wars instead. I mean, I would do that, Baron. Absolutely. I do not plan to see Glass, no. Although I do know the ending of Glass, because I was curious. What would I do with the story? Ultimately, I would probably have it be a character-driven piece. I mean, it's me. And I would have it really focused on... more on the lives affected than the life affecting, if you follow me. Save scumming is an awesome superpower. But moving on. So this is actually a follow-up question to another question I already had. Someone asked me, Hero, Someone asked me what would happen if Ocelot was in Star Wars, and I basically said, uh, I mean, I'm not sure because Ocelot's whole thing. By the way, we're about to spoil Metal Gear Solid. I'm sorry. So this question has to involve spoiling Metal Gear Solid, okay? So, anyways, Ocelot's whole thing was that his only real loyalty was to Big Boss. Like, that was his entire character, was that for all of the manipulation and all the stuff, he was willing to do basically anything, including die, as long as it was in service of whatever Big Boss cared about, right? Ergo, Ocelot without Big Boss, I have no idea what to make of that character. He is an extremely manipulative, clever, incredibly mentally precise individual who can completely talk his way through just about anything. His charisma score is through the roof. And his ability to compartmentalize his mind is insane. So the question now asks, all right, Big Boss and Ocelot are now in Star Wars. So what the question then becomes is, and I'll actually read it over here. Can I just say a quick thing really quick? I'm sorry. Guys, do me a favor and don't do this on my Tumblr, because this always just kind of makes my eyes cross a little bit. Because what this person did is, what if Big Boss and Ocelot were in Star Wars and took part in the Clone Wars? Okay, that's a good question. You stop there. Because what this person then says is, which side would they take in? Which role would they take in the war? What would their goal be? What would they think of Order 66? How would they feel about the Empire? Would they work for the Rebellion or create their own faction? Would they garner support to the Rebellion? How would they deal with the Hutts? Please don't do this. Please don't put 9 questions, because the original, into your Tumblr questions, guys. Please don't do this. A lot of people do this. Drives me batty. Every time I see that, I just feel like I'm going down the list. Yes, no, yes, this other thing. You know, I don't feel like I can actually talk about it because I'm just being rapid-fired questions. The core question's all I need there, because that's an interesting question. Big Boss, Ocelot, Star Wars. Bam. Okay. So, what do you guys think? Now, who was it? Someone just said that. Leander just said Big Boss would probably be a big hit with the clones. And I agree. I actually completely agree. that would actually be... I really do think that Big Boss would be the kind of person that all the clones would just naturally gravitate towards. That then means there's a pretty good chance that Big Boss would end up kind of shifting towards what is effectively the Empire side of things. I also personally feel like Big Boss would also join the Empire when the Republic is restructured, because, first of all, it's the one super military thing. Yeah, he's a modern-day Mandalore, exactly. It's the super militarized thing. Remember, in both the EU and the AU, one of the biggest things that the Republic did was, one of the biggest things the Empire did when it was being shifted from the Republic was it dumped money and resources like crazy into the military, because the military had been completely atrophied prior to this. I'm pretty sure Big Boss would just be all in favor of that. You know? So they joined the Imperial military. Big Boss would probably become like a... I don't actually remember the rank. System Marshal, I want to say. Which is basically a really, really high-ranked member of both aspects of the military. Ocelot would, of course, be his agent and would be in favor of Big Boss. But here's the thing. Big Boss would probably do this basically based on momentum. At what point do you think would Big Boss split from the Empire? Because I have almost no doubt that he would. Because Big Boss did plenty of horrible things in his life, but ultimately, he's still kind of against, you know, landing a starship on a platform of peaceful protesters. I still think I still think Kashtar there would be against that. I'm not sure. Kashtar might be in favor of killing peaceful protesters in a horrific way. Now, I'm seeing several people. Wilson says with Palpatine's death. Pyman says with Order 66. But Baron says the making of the Death Star. And Andrew also says the Death Star. I'm kind of leaning towards the earlier thing. Like the idea that he would probably already be kind of hesitant. And he's just kind of like, you know.
Zug zug.
By the way, thank you very, very much, Castor. Do you want to put those bits towards something? So, I don't think Big Boss would actually leave with Order 66, but I think that would be the big cut. That would be the... Oh. And that would be when his ideology starts to trump his military desire, basically. And he'd start being like, okay, this is awful. What the hell? And then he and Ocelot would try to find some way to do something about it, probably from the inside. And then I'm pretty sure that basically with Alderaan, that would be the terminus point. He had, for the last several years, he's probably already been trying to work against the Empire from within until Alderaan hits. And then it would be like, whoa! Because not only is that mass killing for no reason, because there was no military benefit to doing so, but as someone in chat pointed out, it was Boss Baby, as Boss Baby pointed out, they couldn't fight back. Like, that is the opposite of the military ideal, which Big Boss does agree with. You're going to kill someone, you give them a knife or whatever so they can fight back, right? I also agree that they'd probably get Thrawn on their side. So, yeah, no, I think that Big Boss and Ocelot would probably be, if not instrumental to, if not the originators of, instrumental to the creation of the formalized Rebel Alliance. Now, this is important, too. Oh, but he'd still be in the Empire. That's what I'm trying to say, Lord Harmon. Here's the important part, though. Because if you remember, one of the important parts of both the EU and the AU is that the rebellion wasn't the Rebel Alliance. It was just a bunch of random people who didn't like the Empire until, basically, until right before Empire. Like, the events of A New Hope is one of the big key features that led to the Rebel Alliance being formed. In the EU, that was because of... Oh, I can't think of his name. The Corellian gentleman. Oh god, what's his frickin' name? Help me out, guys. I can't remember. He's in the Thrawn trilogy. He's actually kind of a cool character. And I can't think of his name. Bail! Iblis! Yes. Or not Bail. It's Iblis. It's Iblis. Garm Bel Iblis. That's him. So, Bel Iblis. I have no idea how to pronounce that, by the way. No, Baron. Wrong. Bad. So, it wasn't until after A New Hope that Iblis and Mon Mothma formalized an actual unification of an alliance. So, in my opinion, Big Boss working with Ocelot, working with Mon Mothma, working with Thrawn, would probably be able to go ahead and actually coordinate a unified, connected Rebel Alliance before A New Hope. And then it would then become a formal organization. In other words, it would go loud after Alderaan. Now, someone, who was it? Wilson says, why would they want to restore the old failed Republic? Well, they wouldn't. I'm pretty sure that this Rebel Alliance would have a sufficient brain as to recognize that the old Republic was a failed piece of garbage. And thus, they would not actually be in favor of that. If I could just be quick on the side, one of the things that irritates me most about the AU is that they just were the alliance to restore the Republic. Why? The Republic was dog crap. Anyways. At least in the EU, they made the New Republic, which was similar, but actually had a different structure to it, and actually managed to succeed where the Old Republic failed miserably, but I'm getting off track. When I say succeed, I mean succeed after 30 years of failure. I should clarify that. Anyways. And yeah, okay, Shadow Machine mentioned something else as well. Hi, Richard Brock. That Big Boss might have been able to get the Hutts on his side. Now that I'm not sure. Because I actually am going to shift that a little bit and say that I think Ocelot would be able to get the Hutts on their side. Without them realizing that. Because remember, that's really what Ocelot's really, really good at. The quintuple agent thing. In fact, hang on. I gotta find something. Give me just a second. It's important to me. Give me a moment. Yeah, the very idea that Mon Mothma, who was in the Old Republic, wanted to bring back this just... What? Really? Nope. Too early. Or too late. $195. Give me a second. Here it is. this is a fan comic, but it's one of my favorites. It's The Last Days of Foxhound. And it's Psycho Mantis talking to Revolver Ocelot. So Psycho Mantis says, "Man, I remember 10 minutes ago when logic and sanity governed the universe. Gosh, those were great times." Then Ocelot jumps in and says, "Look, if you ignore the little details, it's really quite simple. For several years, you've been working for a patriot who is actually President Sears, who was put in office by the Patriots, has now tried to gain power to be rid of their control. The Patriots, in order to circumvent his efforts, had me trick you into getting him to hire me as an agent. Now I'm just waiting for the right moment to screw him over." And then Mantis says, "But it's all about the details. I mean, you must spend every day pretending to act like you aren't, falsely letting in that you aren't, not unbetraying someone you don't purport to allegedly not work for, but really do. How do you keep all that crap straight without having an aneurysm?" And then Ocelot's response is to shrug and say, "Practice." That's Ocelot. That really is Ocelot. Trained to be an ex-tuple agent from the age of 4. So yeah, I do think that Ocelot could have gotten the Hutts on the Rebels' side without them really realizing it. And at some point in time, they like in other words, they would be supporting the Rebels and either not know it, or would be doing so because it's their own choice. It makes perfect sense for them to support the Rebels, right? Because Ocelot. Anyways. Moving on. That's my answer to that question. Sorry for going off on that one. By the way, yeah, no kidding, Pie Man. Moving on. So I do have another question. I actually have 4 more questions. Where would the rampant slavery be in that? God damn it, Decoded. What is with the Star Wars and slavery? Jesus, George. Do we need to have a chat, Georgie? In all honesty, you ever wonder what George Lucas thinks about the rampant slavery in, like, every version of Star Wars? Alright, so this question is about Darth Vegas and Darth Chasm. How many of you have any idea what I'm talking about? I'm expecting the answer to that will be 0. I'll just go ahead and answer, because no one's going to know what I'm talking about. Apparently Shadow Machine. Holy crap. So I was asked a question last year, I believe. Last week. Wow. That Darth. So I was tasked with coming up with a power set and mentality for two new characters, Darth Vegas and Darth Chasm. Now, Darth Chasm's ability is basically emphasis and focus on mind control. You know, force persuasion. That's his big shtick. Darth Vegas is all about obfuscation. He will, to put it into gameplay terms, he's a debuffer. He dazzles and betrays, or not betrays, bewilders. You know, hey, look at all this flashy stuff. And basically, you have a harder time functioning properly while around Darth Vegas. Between the two of them, you know, they make a heck of a team, right? Because I'm a weirdo and decided to make something real of this. So then this person, I'm pretty sure it's the same person, but someone else decides to say, hey, you are now charged with creating a story centered around Darth Vegas and Darth Chasm. Where would you set it? What kind of story? What would it be about? Big characters? What type of Sith would it be? Etc. You know, as usual, there's 8 questions here. So, yes, it was last week, Mike Romano. I get Tumblr questions every day, dude. Like, I get an average of 8 a day. My Tumblr feed is exceptionally active. So Vigilant says the Darth Ruin era. That's an interesting idea. Now that's interesting, Leander, because I was thinking of the incredible potential that both Vegas and Chasm would have if they combined forces, because, I mean, basically you have a mind-controlled duo of doom with that. But, you're right, I do like the idea that they're actually kind of going against each other. Basically, yes, Hazardous. So, a Cold War, I like that. I like that idea. So we could have a Cold War situation between the two. And both of them are in charge of their own little fiefdoms, right? Nothing's too huge. I mean, their powers only extend so far, and they don't want to get the attention of someone bigger. No, I did not, Blood Brother. I've been linked it a few times, I just haven't had time to watch it. Master Apprentice ranked to each other? Yeah. I like the idea that they originally were. Let's go ahead and say Darth Chasm was the master and Darth Vegas was the apprentice. And then something happened and they basically split. Rather than Vegas actually killing Chasm, the two ended, Chasm survived and the two ended up splitting up and forming their own respective power bases. It's like 15 minutes. Yeah. My 15 minutes are taken up, Hazardous. Darth Vegas should make his base on Nar Shaddaa. I do like the idea of... So, okay, here's my general thinking. For rough story structure, Vegas and Chasm are basically pulling a Thanaton. Completely ruining and wrecking everything around them in a petty power struggle that doesn't even matter. Like, it's not even a real power struggle. Thanaton didn't need to go after us in Tor. You frickin' moron. But he insisted because he was a stupid idiot. Anyways. I actually kind of like Thanaton as a character, but he was really dumb. Anyways. So the idea being that Vegas and Chasm are both basically pissing matching each other, and it's causing a mess wherever they are. Just causing this constant nonstop struggle and loss of resources, loss of lives, loss of money, destruction of trade routes, permanent loss of infrastructure, that kind of a thing. So it's causing a mess. This then, yeah, hold my beer here. This then leads to the main characters, I don't know who would actually then basically be in charge of dealing with this. Now, I wouldn't make the main characters good, but I would make them good-er. Because basically, I like the idea that the main characters are not positively aligned people, but instead that they are more interested in order than chaos, right? Like, that makes a degree of sense. So in other words, like like someone who's been hired by a crime lord, a bounty hunter, for example, who has been hired by one of the Hutts, actually, is probably a good idea. And the Hutt's like, okay, look, I am losing so much to these two idiots. Will you please deal with this? And so that leads to the bounty hunter, and probably a bounty hunter team, honestly. And they go through this story trying to deal with this garbage. Now, I like the bounty hunter angle. I like the bounty hunter angle because the idea would be that the bounty hunter would be sufficiently talented and capable as to unify enough forces to go after one of them directly. Indirectly, rather than facing someone who has... Because remember, both of them have mind alteration powers. So this bounty hunter would be smart enough to never face either one of them personally. And it would get to the point where eventually both of them would be like, all right, this is stupid. Both of them end up coming out and unifying, again, briefly, in order to take on the main character. The final thing I would do, because I'm a weirdo, I would have it be that, so the bounty hunter, whoever they are, is, I'm assuming they would to Koida, because they're stupid, because Vegas and Chasm haven't been quiet about how they use their powers. So the bounty hunter has armor of some kind of obfuscation. Doesn't have to be the frickin' Mandalorian thing, just something, right? So the armor, the bounty hunter shows up and it's like, all right, I'm ready, and there's a whole bunch of decent number of people on the bounty hunter sides, and both Darth Vegas and Darth Chasm are like, look, you've been causing us a lot of issues, but we're better than you. And so they basically mind control the bounty hunter into killing himself. However, having lured both of them out here, this then leads to the solution, because that actually wasn't the bounty hunter in that armor. It was some guy he hired to do it. He's up in his ship. He opens fire. Sails back home. Gets his payday from the Hutts. End of story. Something like that. There's holes in that. I'd have to smooth it out. But that's the rough structure of how I would probably do that kind of story. Yeah, easy paycheck. I do like the idea. This would probably be a short story, but I do like the idea. It was the bounty hunter after all. Da-na-na-na! I mean, that would be a good lead into something else, Dakota. I actually like that idea. As cliched as that is, I like that. Ooh, yes, using it to get rid of themselves. Oh, that's a good idea. I like that. Oh, that's even better. what was I going to say? I also like the idea that the first chapter or two is basically spent on intel, the detective story, if you will, mystery kind of a thing. You know, kind of trying to figure out how did these two people. Because let's pretend for a moment that at the beginning of the story, they don't know that Darth Vegas and Darth Chasm are Darths, right? They just know that it's Bob and Bobo or Bobina. Let's make Vegas a female. No, let's not do that. Let's make Chasm a female. No, that's worse. Let's make Vegas a female. So Bob and Bobina, right? And so there's this whole mystery discovery detective story as he tries to figure out how these people have become such an issue. How they have caused so many problems to the Hutt cartels. No, Crazy Norse. Although I guess I could check my thing here. There's my thing. Oh yeah, there would definitely be a cult undercard. Absolutely. And I agree with Yudachi. You know, it's bring some more non-Force users to the fore. Damn it. I love Star Wars. Loved Star Wars, but for God's sakes. There's more things in Star Wars than the Force, you know? Yeah, exactly, Leander. Something like that. And then, of course, climactic thing. We figured, oh my god, it's... like, there would be a big moment where he realizes that Bob's name is Darth Vegas. And the bounty hunter would be smart enough to be like, oh. Oh, that explains everything. He wouldn't say that, but it would be on his face just... And then there would just be an audible, huh. And that would be it. Non-human folks, I'm with it. They do, Takoida. Which, I mean, this kind of slides nicely into if you're thinking about it, because this is two Force users basically ruining the lives of hundreds of thousands of people within this region. Thank you very, very much, Sakage. As ever, I do much appreciate those subs. Would you like to put that towards Doom? Am I misunderstanding you? Or would you like to put it towards something else? No super weapons! No super weapons. No. So now let's answer Zawan's question. Let's talk about Nintendo stuff. You guys like Nintendo, right? You don't like Nintendo?
Zug zug.
Okay, putting it towards Doom. Doom. You gotta say it right. Doom. Doom. I'm gonna stop doing that now. Thank you again. So this is Zawan's question. Zawan says, why are you so stupid? I hate you and your stupid face. Also, the dwarves are awesome, and the undead must die. Sorry. That was a couple of years ago. If you were tasked to redesign the Switch, has to be roughly the same size and shape of the old Switch. It basically has to fit the deluxe travel path they sell. But I'm sorry, what's the actual question there? Like, what do you mean by redesign? It works fine as is. What do you want? What's the goal? Dwarves are awesome. Dwarves are awesome. I can't actually do a proper accent of anything other than the dwarf, but I try to practice my dwarven accent every now and again. Make sure I keep it fresh, you know, so I don't lose it like I've lost so many other accents over the years. So now I'm going to wait for clarification from Zawan, because I don't understand his question. Strobe lights. I mean, because if we have to keep it the same size, I'll tell you exactly what I'd do. I'd make it better. More hardware. Hardware is getting better in a literal monthly basis at this point. I would go ahead and drop the money and make it basically a Switch Pro. Same thing, same size, same Joy-Con. Joy-Cons are extremely important. Without the Joy-Cons, it's not a Switch, it's just a 3DS 2. So, keep the Joy-Cons, keep the setup, increase the hardware, increase the capacity, make this sucker capable of playing Kingdom Hearts 3, for example, to use a direct example. That's what I would do, without any other clarification. I don't know what else I would do with it. Wait, nope, I've got one other thing, one other wish list. Make a slot for 3DS cartridges and DS cartridges. You can just and play DS games and 3DS games just straight on the game. Boom, done. That's what I want. Yeah, that. Better hardware, Reverse compatibility sold. Honestly, and I know what you're thinking. You know, you're thinking, Lore, you're stupid. Without exaggeration, those are my actual wants, my wish list, if you will, for the Switch going forward. I want it to be able to play older games, and I want it to have better hardware to play more games. I want as many games on that thing as possible. Because the Joy-Cons are the best thing ever. Does that answer you, someone? Because I don't know what else I would do. Make it bigger! Hang on, I got one more want that has nothing to do with the Switch. I want the Nintendo to release versions of the Joy-Cons designed to work on the PC. Like, it's Joy-Cons plus a little bit of a, you know, it's a little bit of a, like a port you can hook it into to charge them. And then there's like a dongle that comes with, and you just plug that in, and boom, you've got the Joy-Cons on the PC. And now I know what you're saying. Well, you can do that as is. Speaking from personal experience, that is such a monumental pain in the arse to get Joy-Cons working on this PC, and I never even really succeeded. It was incredibly crappy quality. So, you know, I want the ability to play on the PC as I do on the Switch with those Joy-Cons. Yeah, it just would not work. The only time I got it even close to working, and this is not a joke, was when my computer's down below the desk, right? This is when I had the Joy-Cons down here, like this, and I was just doing this, which is completely untenable. So anyways. Speaking of Nintendo, so this is actually a follow-up question to another question that we got like 3-4 weeks ago now. This person says, "You're an idiot, you're dumb." No, they don't say that. It was actually about the Smash Bros. Question. You remember that? Apparently, and I quote, "I did not want you..." I do correct myself. I did want you to create lore based on the Nintendo universe, not the Smash universe. So what this question basically is make a Nintendo interconnected setting and make it work. How do you do it? So we've got Star Fox, Captain America, Link, Mario, Kirby is in there. You know, all this stuff has to coexist within the same setting, and it has to make sense. So how do you do it? Now, it's worth noting that almost every single... Did I say Captain America? It actually... I'm sorry. It says in the question Captain America, so that was me reading it. Who was I trying to say instead of Captain America? Because it actually says Mario is Captain America, Link is Thor, Samus is Captain Marvel, Star Fox is the Guardians of the Galaxy. Anyways, Go! Boom! Oh, that's right, Captain Falcon. That was what I was trying to say. Sorry. Okay, no. So what I would do... yeah, we've talked about Kingdom Hearts with Nintendo, and I think there's lots of ways to do that. Really, I do. But if I'm being honest, I like the idea of doing my own thing with it. Because I put thought into interconnected continuities a lot because it's something that fascinates me from a conceptual idea. So I like the idea that we have basically like the core world, this one planet, right? And this is basically the Mario planet. Between all of the Mario RPGs and the Mario games, there is plenty of terrain, countries, cultures, species to populate an entire world with just Mario. This is something we'll discuss when we get to the Mario RPG lore run. There's tons of lore here. Really, there is. So that would be like the Mario planet, right? That would probably be the closest equivalent to the MCU's Earth, you know, the hub world. Now, other people would travel to and from here on a semi-regular basis with some exceptions. In other words, this hub world would be aware of the greater galactic community. Make sense? So this brings me to Metroid, which is my very first thing. And several people in chat already said this too. The idea that they should be... Whether or not they should be part of the Galactic Federation. Pokemon? Pokemon could fit on the Mario world relatively easily, actually. Like, that would be a very smooth fit. But I have to be honest, I like the idea more that Pokemon are just everywhere. Like, there's just... The Pokemon are a galactic thing, right? So, we've got the Mario planet. We'll call it Mushroomia, because I suck at naming on the fly. And I could call them all Bob if you prefer. So Mushroomia would be here. We would also probably have a Link World. Again, there's a decent amount of different cultures and people in in the various Legend of Zeldas that we could populate most of a planet. The catch is, what we would have to do is we would have to take all of the games and do this with them, when it comes to Zelda, in order to really make it a full planet, or at least a dimension, or whatever you want to call that. Because there's plenty of different cultures, but most of them are only in one game, with very few exceptions. You know, we got the Gorons, the Zora, the Gerudo, and the Hylians, and I guess the fairies. Only the 5 base species are across multiple things, so we would have to smash it all into one relatively cohesive continuity. So we would have the Loreweeks and the Minish, and God, I don't know. There's other examples that I just can't think of right now. There are plenty of different cultures and examples across the Zelda series that would exist across one planet at one time. Now, where was it? Mandarton said the idea of making Hyrule into an Asgard rather than a whole planet. I kind of like that idea, actually. Because we literally see Asgard in Thor 3, spoilers, and it's basically the size of, like, I don't know, New Zealand. It's not huge. And it's just kind of out there in space. New Zealand is not a small island, at least not when it comes to, thinking about that kind of thing. I'd probably make it a little bit bigger, but I do kind of like that idea of it being effectively a magical habitat. I don't know what other word to use. That's just out there in space. Now, one of the things... That's true, Inquisitor. One of the things... Hang on, I'm going to address Fire Emblem in a second, because I have an idea here. And same with Baron, because one of the ideas in the actual... no, it's not a plane. It's not a separate plane. It's in space. It's in physical space. But one of the ideas that's posited in the MCU is that Asgard is basically the conquering kingdom of the 9 realms, and each of those 9 realms is just 9 separate planets within their local sector. All of this, they use fanciful fantasy terms for this, but everything actually translates fairly neatly into logical normal space. Thus, the area that Asgard controls is basically just one small area of space relative to the overall galaxy. This actually comes through quite a bit in Thor 2, which I recently covered for Rumination. Because they talk, if you look at through the proper lens, you see how it's basically a story of a nation that's trying to continuously keep its own vassals in control, because its vassals have decided to stretch out and do things. And the only reason Asgard retains control is because they have that bridge. They have the Bifrost. And the Bifrost is such an enormously powerful weapon. The ability to basically transport troops to and from a location at will was so useful that even though everyone else was bigger and stronger and had more militaries, they just couldn't stand against Asgard, and they eventually capitulated, right? So, similar concept here with regards to Hyrule, that they have this spot, and they have the Twilight, or the Twilight, or however the heck you want to say that. And they use their own basic portal magic to effectively maintain a degree of control over a decent chunk of area around here in a similar way. The what, Vigilant? I'm sorry. Oh, the gateways. Yes, it's the Iconian advantage, exactly. It's the Iconian advantage. I should start calling it that. So then we would have to establish several worlds that would be under their control. Now, I like the idea that the Mushroom World is under their jurisdiction. That Fungia is under their control. And thus, the reason why, despite being part of the galactic community, they don't really have much of a galactic presence themselves is because they're a vassal state of Hyrule. Right? And the only one who's against that, the only one who really doesn't like that state is Bowser. You know, the one who is trying to upset the status quo. Make sense? So now, Pikmin being a trading company, I like that. I just want to say that really quick. Fire Emblem. I want to address Fire Emblem. Because, let's go ahead and address something really quick. Fire Emblem's continuity is wonky. Because Fire Emblem deliberately introduces multiple dimensions on a regular basis. Which sort of... I mean... right? So, implementing Fire Emblem into this universe would actually be kind of difficult, in my opinion. Because we would have to do one of two things. We just go ahead and have the layered dimensions of Fire Emblem over there in its own corner. Or we would have to kind of, again, condense Fire Emblem in a similar way that we did with Zelda. To make there be like a Fire Emblem world, which has multiple of the nations from the Fire Emblem series, and have it all be on one cohesive world, which is kind of doing its own thing. Now, here's the thing. My first thought, well, that's true, Shadow Machine, my first thought with regards to Fire Emblem is really super low-tier tech, right? Like, the Mario stuff has computers and internet and stuff, right? And Zelda has magic and high-powered stuff and portals and all that. But Fire Emblem is really low-tier. So I like the idea that Fire Emblem is basically either a protected world or an undiscovered world. One of the two. And in both cases, it would be like something that is off-limits for one reason or another. This also kind of leads to the idea of what I meant about the Hyrule Protectorate, this sector of space. Because I kind of like the idea that Hyrule effectively claims the Fire Emblem world, and the Fire Emblem world doesn't know this. And Hyrule basically goes out of its way to keep people off the Fire Emblem world as a... I don't know, what's the term for that? There's a term for that. Sanctuary? That doesn't sound right. I mean, a sanctuary is correct, but there's actually a proper term for, like, this is a bird. Anyways. And thus... Protectorate works, I guess, whatever. But I like the idea that they have this place. A reserve is actually the word I was thinking of. It's like a reserve area. The only question is why. We would have to come up with a why Hyrule has shown interest in this place. Actually, yeah, that's a good way to put that, Inquisitor. So we'd have to give up a reason for why Hyrule cares about the Fire Emblem world, and why they're just keeping them, you know, low-tech, like Takoida says with the suppressor idea, and keeping everyone else off of it. Now, I like the idea of Ultra Space being used as a multi-dimensional mass relay thing, although if I'm being honest, I'd prefer to keep dimensional off of this. Like, I'd prefer to keep dimensional stuff away from this. So I prefer... Oh, that's a good idea, Takoida. Because I prefer the idea that Ultra Space, effectively, like you said, just functions as a mass relay. You know, you take a shortcut and then you end up someplace else. You know, warp travel from Warhammer, except without the... Oh, Leander has a good idea. Hi, Cadet. I like Leander's idea, but let me take that in a different direction. Maybe Fire Emblem is, let's call it a mono well. Like, something about that world produces a, like, more magic, more mana, whatever you want to call it, than most places do. And so Hyrule effectively has claim to those mono wells, and because... So this then makes Hyrule less of a good guy in this situation, because that means the reason the Hyrule Kingdom is keeping them under control is specifically because they want to make sure that they don't develop enough to get to the point where they can rebel against Hyrule, and no one else can get access to those that tremendous access to magical resource, right? So that could then be the reason for the suppressing field. And yeah, then, as Rax said, this would make sense for why magic is such a commonplace thing in Fire Emblem. Because they deliberately have agents there basically trying to foster a magical society to keep that well going. To keep that power flowing. To keep the oil coming, you know? How does the Triforce factor into this? I like the idea that the original, in this setting, in this new setting, we're effectively creating a new canon here. I like the idea that the Triforce was what was used to make what is now the Hyrule habitat. There's this island in space. The fact that it works the way it does, the fact that it still has things like gravity and air and can grow, and sunlight and all that stuff is there because it was basically crafted by, let's call it the original wish of the Triforce, that someone found it, used it, and founded what became the Hyrule Kingdom. So I've skipped over a few things. So Metroid, right? I like the idea that let's call it just the Federation. Let's not make it the Galactic Federation. So no need to go huge here. I like the idea of Sonic getting involved, but I don't want to get to that yet because I have an idea for Sonic. So the Federation is a much smaller organization, but still overall, let's call it bigger than Hyrule and its kingdom, but not necessarily better. Think the NCR from Fallout, from the old Fallout games. You know, they're fairly large. They have a lot of member states. They're kind of corrupt, but not actually evil. They have some bureaucracy issues, but they're not ill-intended. You know, it's just a nice big gray blob of a republic, basically. And that's the Federation. And I would like them to be basically, at the very least, trade competitors with Hyrule, if not actual competitors with the Hyrule Force. That's true. We could also have the Federation be, you know, the core state. The corp state, excuse me. I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Yeah, not stupid. They have to not be stupid evil. It's important. If we need to lean on stupid evil, then we have made a mistake. We can make like one guy stupid evil. That he's the one. His name's EA. This magic more biotech. Ah! I mean, you're kind of right, though, Dakota. Like, the idea that, that the Federation is really big on biotech and really big on experimentation. It could just be literally, like, the idea that the Federation is fully corporate because of the fact... Because if you actually think about it, if you actually pay attention to the Metroid continuity, which is a little bit incongruent with itself, as we've established, and we'll talk about that during the Metroid Pseudo-Lore run. But if you look at Metroid continuity, if you pay attention to it, the Federation really functions more as a corporation than a government. They really do. They function in many ways as a form of Weyland-Yutani, but not as stupid, you know? Just as devoid of morals, but not as stupid. And, of course, there's decent people working for it, too. The only difference is the Federation actually has a military force, but, I mean... East India Trading Company, you know, it's not like a corporation with its own military is a hard thing to conceptualize. So, I like the idea that the Federation functionally is a corporation, which is, you know, has its own military, which brings us to Star Fox. I was going to segue here. The idea that Star Fox is still a mercenary corp, you know, group, excuse me, corps, that would be core at that point. For Star Fox is still a mercenary corps, just like Star Wolf. And they've got their own kind of thing going on, but they often do work for various competing interests within the region. You know, sometimes they'll do work for Hyrule, sometimes they'll do work for the Federation, sometimes they'll do work for... I don't know, and I'm trying to think of another, like, space-level power that we would have here, which, of course, I suppose brings me to talking about Sonic. Now, I like the idea that the Sonic world would also be part of the Hyrule Protectorate Zone, in a similar way to the Mario world, because if you're paying attention, again, to the Sonic lore, and I don't blame you if you never have, there's a decent amount of the Sonic world, which is, of course, supposed to be just Earth in most cases, and how it interacts with itself, and blah, blah, blah. They have, again, you know, internet and technology and all the usual fun stuff, but they're not super advanced. They do have space stations, and in some cases they have ridiculous levels of tech. But I do like that we have this Sonic world, and I like the idea that Robotnik actually isn't part of the Sonic world at all. That he was, but that he ended up leaving and becoming part of the Federation. Becoming one of the inventors, designers, etc. of the corporate Federation. Because remember, we have to cross stuff over. We can't just put everything in its own bubble, right? I mentioned the Bowser thing back on Mario. Someone also mentioned Ganon. We haven't really discussed what Ganon would be doing with regards to this. Let's just take Demise and, there we go. So Ganon, I like the idea that Ganon is someone who, let's call it, is interested in territorial expansion when it comes to the Hyrulean Protectorate, and most of the other powers of the Hyrule Protectorate don't want that. They're like, no, we're good, we're cool. There's no real reason to keep expanding. And Ganon basically disagrees with us to the point where Ganon ends up either... So there's two ways we could do Ganon. We could have him be a political element within the Hyrule Protectorate, who is an antagonistic force, or we can have Ganon and his own forces literally leave the Hyrule Protectorate. What do you think? Which of those do you think are better? Because if we have Ganon... I like the idea that Ganon tries a straight-up civil war, loses, and then leaves, and then starts coordinating with someone else. And you're probably thinking, who would Ganon coordinate with? Well, I can think of two options. Bowser's an obvious one, but Bowser's too small scale. I like the idea of Ganon approaching the pirates, the space pirates, from the Metroid setting, from the Federation. And, of course, Takoida already got there. But I do like that idea. I think there's actually a decent amount of narrative gelling between Ganon and his supporters, not the actual Gerudo women, just they would stay behind. But, you know, Ganon and his actual supporters and the space pirates and the way they operate. Remember, the whole function of the space pirates is you have individuals of significant individual personal power can retain significant positions of political power within the space pirate hierarchy. This is one of the reasons why Ridley is a high-ranked commander. It's not because he's some genius or who is politically connected. It's because of the fact that he's a death machine. So I like the idea that the space pirates would have, you know, a few people actually from across the thing, but Ganon being a big one, who is effectively a commander of the space pirates because he's a beast, because he's awesome, because he can do that. And oh, Andros! I like Andros being another pirate commander. I like that idea. So we've got Andros and Ganondorf, I should call him Ganondorf, as being commanders of this. And Ridley would probably just stay with the space pirates. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, do we even have motives for a character like that? Not counting the manga. Exactly, Takoida. See, Takoida gets this. So now, we haven't talked about Kirby yet. I like the idea that Kirby is effectively... There's not really an MCU equivalent here, but that Kirby would be someone who would effectively line up with the leader of the Avengers. That there would be a a group across this thing that they don't always work together, but whenever stuff gets really bad, this group unites to go deal with the big problem. And I like the idea that Kirby is effectively kind of the connecting point of all of those people. In other words, that Kirby... Nick Fury, there we go. That Kirby is the Nick Fury. So in other words, the idea being that Kirby and his stuff, as has been pointed out before, thanks to not only his star attack and his ability to quite literally move faster than light, but also the nature of Dreamland and how it works, that Kirby and the Dreamland are effectively, let's call it the Nexus world. Either in a literal sense or in more of a dimensional sense, something like that. But either way, that Dreamland is the place that everywhere else connects to, one way or the other, right? And thus, Dreamland would be just an absolute cornucopia of all kinds of different people and cultures from all of the different Nintendo stuff, right? Then Kirby himself, like I said, no, I take that back. It wouldn't be Kirby who would be the Nick Fury. I agree with that, Takoida. So let's make it a dimensional plane, a Nexus plane like that. It wouldn't be Kirby who's the leader, who's the connector of the Avengers. It would be Meta Knight. Think about it. Remember, Meta Knight is not a villain. There is actually Kirby lore, by the way, Crazy Norse. I've discussed this several times on camera. So Meta Knight would be the one who got the group together. And he kind of has that same sort of pragmatic, you know, ends justifies the means thing going for him. Now, Zero and Dark Matter would probably be one of the, one of the major villains. One of the things that the Avengers, we'd have to come up with a term, the Ninvengers, where they would have to actually coordinate to defeat Zero and the Dark Matters. Because Zero, if you actually think about it, Zero is actually a fairly high-tier threat, relatively speaking. And, Zero is also the kind of threat that would be a threat for, more than just one planet or plane. In fact, I could just picture the story unfolding right now, where they're like, and we kept him contained within the dimensional lock here, so he wouldn't even enter real space, but Zero got out, and stuff started going bad, so, come on, and then Meta Knight's just running around, connecting all these, the Smash League, there we go, connecting the Smash League together to go deal with this problem, and stop the Zeros. That would be like the Avengers 1 thing, right? Hey, Zeiss, I hope the gym treated you well. I'm still sore, but that's not related to that. I think, I hope. I've been pushing myself more than usual lately, so I don't know. Now, Splatoon was mentioned. I like the idea that Splatoon is basically all that's left of a planet. Like, it's not really... I'm trying to think how to phrase this. It's let's say Splatoon... Oh, I've got it. Splatoon was an experiment gone bad on behalf of the Federation. That they had this planet and they were trying to develop some kind of bio-virus, Resident Evil style, in order to develop the world into being more adaptable. Because remember, one of the things in lore about the Splatoon people is that they actually can go into a liquid state and then come back into a solid state. That's actually lore. That's not just a game mechanic. So I like the idea that they were trying to develop this, and it led to, you know, the apocalypse that the Splatoon setting is set in, and then led to, you know, the Splatoon setting itself. The only downside is that doesn't really connect Splatoon in any other way other than, you know, the creation story. So I kind of like the idea that the Splatoon was wrecked, and so this actually be another story arc in its own right. Splatoon is destroyed as a result of this. Someone finds out, Samus, excuse me, finds out about this. This word gets out. The Splatoon people, someone else would have to reach out to the Splatoon people and basically offer them trip off their freaking planet and allow the Splatoon people to, you know, the Squid Kids. There's a term for that. I can't think of it. There's actually 2 species on the planet. I can't think of either of them right now. Allow them to be able to go out amongst the rest of the galaxy and become part of the galactic community. Which, once again, this is like the 3rd time now I've wanted for another galactic power other than the Hyrule Protectorate and the Corporate Federation. Help me out, guys. I need another galactic power in Nintendo. It can't be Kirby, because Kirby's got that whole dimensional thing going. They're over there in the Dreamland. I could picture that, Dakota. It's like a thing. Excuse me. Well, we already have Star Fox as present. That's true. We could have Corneria actually be a power. That's not a bad idea. That could just be another... Maybe not as big... Well, no. No, I've got it. Corneria is... Yeah, the Lylat... I wouldn't make it the galaxy, but like the Lylat system. Because remember, the Federation isn't huge. It's just, you know, multi-system. Just like Hyrule is multi-system. So it's not that hard of a stretch to think that the Lylat system basically, you know, expanded to the point where they now have multiple systems within their purview. Here's the question. I know I said earlier that Andross... Ooh, I like that, Crazy Norse. I know we said earlier that Andross would be part of the Space Pirates, but we could undo that and instead make it that either the Lylat system is Andross's empire, or that it is the Cornerian Empire. Which one do you like better? I should be writing this down. Guys, new project. We're putting the theater on hold. We're going to make the Nintendo MCU. I can already picture the map in my head. Rosalina. I like the idea that Rosalina really just has her ship, the observatory, and she is basically a watcher, to use the MCU equivalent. She's just watching, observing. So Baron says he prefers the Cornerian. Cadet says that she... I need opinions. This is a discussion, guys. So should we have it be the Cornerian Empire or the Androssian Empire? Because that will change a few things elsewise. I've been debating what to do about Kid Icarus, and I actually have a thought about that. I want to attach Kid Icarus to Zelda. The Nintendo GU. Okay, I'm with that. Geludo also prefers the Cornerian Empire. If we go with the Cornerian Empire, this just kind of works. I'd probably go with, like, the Cornerian Republic or something like that. No, I take that back. Let's make them the Cornerian Hegemony, okay? Heavy militarization. I mean, if you pay attention during all the Star Fox games, the amount of ships and fleets and power they have is just significant. And it's just for one system. Like, they do not have a small amount of power. So I like the idea that they are heavily militarized. Not evil, and not necessarily expansionist, but they have probably the single strongest core naval military amongst this whole region of space, between the 3 major powers we've discussed so far. And that, of course, makes them natural competitors. Yeah, like the Turians, great example, great example. So this makes them natural competitors, both the Hyruleans, who maintain their protectorate and their own little monopoly there, and with the corporate federation, who constantly is trying to get into every little crack that they can, right? I know, right, Leander? So let's make it the Cornerian hegemony. And that then means that the Cornerians could have been the ones who reach out to the Splatoon people and it's like, hey, as like a gesture of good faith. But in truth, this also leads to... Oh, what was it called? Morden in Mass Effect 2 was a part of this group in his backstory. STG. It was STG. Have this group, this corp, this squadron, whatever, of platoon people, Splatoon people, excuse me, that have been rescued by the Cornerian Empire. Not all of them. They did rescue a bunch of them, but just have a group of Splatoon people be the STG equivalent for the Cornerian hegemony. And because of their ability to literally liquefy and go out, it's the founder thing, like someone said in chat earlier. They're practically shapeshifters. The amount of ability for them to infiltrate would be huge. So have them be the special ops arm of the Cornerians. Now, Baron says WarioWare is the Central Corporation of Trade. I have to be honest, I kind of like the idea instead that WarioWare is, let me put it to you this way, like that's a successful corporation, right? But Wario himself constantly abandons it to go found some other incredibly stupid excavation, either to find treasure or to make money. And it always fails, and so he ends up slinking back to WarioWare. And then he goes and tries something else, and then that fails. And he goes and tries something else, and that fails. And like, because if you pay attention, WarioWare is like the one consistent success story that Wario himself has ever had. Everything else he always does just constantly falls apart, right? Awaka the 13th or the 23rd, excuse me. And so WarioWare is actually run by someone else. What's the name of the dog from Animal Crossing? Not the raccoon, the dog. Someone's got to know. I'll Google it. Hang on. Animal. Isabelle. Okay. I was gonna say she's in Smash. Isabelle is Wario's like chief executive. She's the Pepper Potts of WarioWare Inc. She's the reason it actually works. She's the reason it actually functions and continues to make money, while Wario, effectively functioning as a failure Stark here, runs off constantly failing at everything he does, and he always comes back and she's like, okay, so we made decent money, we lost everything. On that ship venture, you tried to mine a black hole? You tried to mine a black hole. But we've recouped some of those losses in the minigame sector, just stuff like that. So Isabelle would actually be the one technically running WarioWare Inc. While Wario himself is just Wah! Which brings us to Waluigi. You mean you told... He was trying to mine mana in a black hole. Let's make it even more ridiculous. Oh god, you tried to mine SR-388. I believe I mentioned that this was a amazingly bad idea. Hang on, I have another idea. So we have Isabella already, or Isabelle, from Animal Crossing. I have another idea for Animal Crossing really quick. And that other idea is the Mafia. They would be the equivalent of the Hutts. This would be under the raccoon. And that would be effectively their purpose. They have their own slot over here, and a planet or planets that they actually control with their own private military, which is basically just a corps of mercenaries. I imagine Starwolf works for them regularly. And they are the Mafia. They are the frickin' Tom Nook Mafia. And that's their role in all of this. Now, you might be thinking, well, hang on, you were just about to talk about Waluigi. I like the idea that Waluigi is basically someone who is working for the Tom Nook Mafia. And he's simultaneously really good at what he does and really terrible at it. Like, he has like a straight 50-50 success rate, right? He either succeeds really well or he fails miserably. And that's why they keep him on board, because that 50%, okay, that's worth it. Okay, I'm with that. And so Waluigi himself, now I would make him like not horribly evil, because Waluigi isn't evil. He's just kind of doing his thing. Yeah, Majima, that's actually a good way to put that. And so Waluigi is going off and doing his own thing. Apparently I'm very racist for saying, or excuse me, very stereotypical for saying this. I don't care, though. Because it works, damn it. I also like the idea that Waluigi secretly... So hang on. Zawan says, why does Wario and Waluigi team up? I'm picturing a story arc where basically Waluigi dreams of basically being like he just adores Star Fox, right? He is a huge Star Fox fanboy. And just, I want to be up there and saving the day and shooting the bad guys, and it's going to be great. I just need more money. And that's basically Waluigi's arc, right? That he desperately wants to get one big score to be able to get up there and like, yeah. Then he meets Wario. And I mean, the story writes itself, doesn't it? Wah! Yeah, he's got Top Gun memorabilia for Star Fox. You know, he's got the Starlink thing. You know, he's got the R-wing thing in the corner. And so Wario's like, yeah, I got this great big score. You gotta join me. Yeah, failure, but not too much failure, because I like good endings. And so Waluigi ends up basically segregating at the end of the story. Yes, and he's got a rose in his mouth. At the end of this story, Waluigi, basically, the venture kind of fails, but it still succeeds enough that in the process of his adventure, he basically bumbles into his way into being kind of a hero and actually helping out. And so as a result, someone, you know, either Star Fox or Star Wolf, I haven't decided, but I like the idea of it being Star Fox, basically offers him a position within their mercenary company. And he ends up getting his own R-Wing and being like, yeah, and living the dream, right? And Wario goes back to Isabella. I didn't make money. No cosmic horror. We already have Kirby. So what's Starfy? I'm sorry. I know what Golden Sun is. I don't know what I'd do with Golden Sun. Oh my god, man, Darth. Yes, Waluigi is Luke Skywalker. Or is Luke Skywalker Waluigi? I'm gonna have to Google this. I don't actually know what that is. Starfy. What is Starfy? What the heck is this? Densetsu no Staffy? I've never even heard of this. Oh yeah, I haven't brought Mother into this. Do I want to bring Mother into this? Okay. If we're going to do Mother, that would be Earth. I mean, obviously, right? And that would be Earth's own position in this. I like the idea that... So I mentioned already that Fungia, you know, the Mushroom Kingdom, would effectively serve as the MCU's equivalent of Earth for this. But if we're including Earthbound, if we're including the Mother series, then that would shift over to them. Because one of the whole narrative points about Earth in the MCU is that Earth is an insignificant speck that nobody cares about until some of the big boys start getting involved. The Tesseract is found, Thanos takes notice of it, etc. And they actually fight off an attack by the Chitauri. This actually basically puts Earth on the map. Same general idea. You know, Earth is some completely irrelevant suburb that doesn't even have spaceflight. Who gives a crap? Until Gygus shows up. Not Gygus, but, you know, the one who is the space alien invader. Shows up, basically tries to conquer Earth, and fails. Is actually pushed back by the residents of Earth, which then puts Earth on the radar. Make sense? I also like that idea, Leander. Even though you put a silly face? A tonguey face? I don't know what the Kong is. Yeah, Gigu. Or actually, I believe it's pronounced Geeg. I'm serious. I've looked that up. I have the book for that. Yeah, to Earth's detriment, exactly. Now Earth is on the radar, and it's like, great. But I do like the idea that PSI is basically, let's call it a more efficient way of using mana. In other words, I could cast a spell and use 20 mana, or I could cast a Psi that does the same thing and use 10 mana or 5 mana, right? And I like that idea that PSI is actually something that then gives Earthbound and the Mother World, Earth, value. Which then basically screws Earth over completely, right? Because now, there's this new thing. And that could be a whole story arc by itself. The various powers all trying to get involved in this and take something from it. I'm just trying to picture at least one Yeah, no kidding, Dakota. I'm trying to picture at least one PSI user actually being recruited by the Tom Nook Mafia. Like, so listen, your planet's getting attacked and crushed by the space pirates, and the Federation's trying to establish a thing. I even hear the Hyruleans have been showing up. I'm going to offer you a job. It's a very simple thing. You see this? So here's your first paycheck. Now, one of two things is going to touch this paycheck. Your ink or your brains. So I'll let you pick. If I'm being honest, I'd probably want to keep Phazon out of it. Because Phazon is a huge... Yes, I have, Met Overlord. Phazon is a hugely large-scale threat. Phazon is a fully galactic-level threat. Phazon would be another one of those, have to get the Smash League together to deal with it kind of a thing. A Doctor Strange Nintendo... I mean, honestly, Kirby himself would probably best qualify for that. Or King Dedede. Because we haven't done much with King Dedede yet. Oh, I like that. King Dedede is a dimensional traveler. I mean, obviously there's just the one dimension. There's Dreamland and then there's us. But, I like the idea that Dedede just goes around doing his own thing to try and help. Because remember, King Dedede is a good guy. He has been a good guy in every single game he's been in except one. He is always trying to help people out. So I like the idea of King Dedede being a rogue hero, basically. Just running around, saving people, helping people, that kind of a thing throughout the course of this whole connected universe. So we haven't talked about Donkey Kong yet. We haven't really discussed Pokemon. Yeah, an anti-hero. Hi, Backstime. So, hang on. Leander says, did the hegemony give Porky his army in Mother 3? I like that idea. Because that would be a political ploy at that point. They reach out. The hegemony wants a chunk of Earth, just like everyone else does. And rather than send an invasion fleet like the pirates did, rather than try to buy people out like the mafia does, rather than try to just buy out and try and experiment on it like the Federation does, rather than just sending agents there like Hyrule does, they find a puppet, Porky in this case, or whoever, and they say, we'll give you troops, you give us loyalty. And thus the hegemony gets a vassal state on Earth. Yeah, Dedede's usually a jerk to Kirby specifically, which is weird. Because, then at the same time, whenever Kirby is like, oh, you're a good guy, they're just like, friends, just whatever. Ooh, that's true, Dakota. Because, I mean, Fire Emblem, right? Military world. Oh, God. I actually like the idea. Hang on, I just had another idea for what Fire Emblem could be used for. It could be a training grounds. It could be a world that's basically constantly artificially engendering war. Like the Hyruleans are specifically trying to make sure that the various factions are constantly at war, specifically to cultivate leaders, which they then prune for their own purposes, for the Hyrule's own military. And I like the idea that the hegemony basically reaches out and actually is like, And basically, I shouldn't say but like after extensive effort and work, manages to infiltrate and grab like one commander out, and that one person ends up working for the hegemony as like one of their chief military officers. I don't know Fire Emblem enough well enough to pick who that would be, though, so I'll take suggestions on that. Don't say Chrom. That's true. Advance Wars could also work for that. Mario Kart? Oh, Mario Kart is Formula 1. Someone already mentioned that, actually. Mario Kart is just, yeah! It's the Olympics. Mario Kart is the Olympics, basically, of this whole thing. Like, everyone is like, all right, hang on. It's Olympics time, and everyone just goes in Mario Karts and Smash Bros. And all the other, Mario Party. That's their version of the Olympics. F-Zero? That's true. We haven't discussed F-Zero yet. We haven't discussed Donkey Kong yet. So, if I'm honest, I love the idea of basically... Yeah, exactly. Reserves. I love the idea of basically each member of the Kong... Each major significant character from the Donkey Kong setting basically being pulled out and being somewhere else. In other words, I like the idea that the Donkey Kong setting effectively doesn't exist. It's effectively not even there. And instead, just the Donkey Kong characters are members of the society that exists overall. And thus, we would just specifically say, okay, Diddy Kong is here, Donkey Kong is here, Crazy Kong is here, or Cranky Kong, excuse me, is here, Surfer Kong, whose name I can't think of, is over here, King K. Rool is over here, you know, that kind of a thing. I know, Zawan. Like the GameCube F-Zero, I want that, except now and on the Switch, with a long trail of bananas. But that's probably what it would do with Donkey Kong in general. At most, we could say that Donkey Kong Island is an island on probably the Mario planet, I would say. Yes, there has to be more Olympics. We need all of the Olympics. Just cram it all in there. I would say Smash is also part of the Olympics, yes. Smash, Mario Party, and Mario Kart would basically be the Olympics for these people. Now, that may... Well, hang on. This is not Smash. No, Rhino Noble. Smash doesn't exist. This is just us creating a new continuity based on all of the Nintendo properties as if they all existed within one contiguous continuity. That's what we're trying to do here. So hang on. F-Zero. I'm not sure what I want to do with F-Zero, because if you ever paid attention to the F-Zero lore, it's really, really soft science. It's like super soft serve science, right? Like, wow. So, I mean, Blue Falcon, the mercenary who can literally punch planets. I mean, just... So I like the idea of bringing F-Zero down a few dozen notches towards reality. But of course, we already have the Mario Kart thing. We could eject Mario Kart, or we could basically merge Mario Kart and F-Zero, or we could go a totally different direction with F-Zero. I like the idea personally that the F-Zero pilots are basically the freelancers of the setting. It's something we haven't really discussed yet. It's similar, yes, similar, Matt Overlord. And we've actually already discussed Metroid. The Space Pirates are there, the Corporate Federation is there, Samus is doing her own thing. Ganondorf is one of the commanders of the Space Pirates. So I like the idea that the F-Zero people are the privateers. Yeah, exactly. Rather than having their own little car, they actually have a ship. And they actually have... we're answering you, Zoan. And they actually have their own modus operandi, basically. You know, you've got... what's his name, Goto Samurai, whatever, who is renowned for getting a job done, but leaving a lot of collateral damage behind. You've got the Professor, who's very good at being very precise, but can't handle high-risk missions. You've got Captain Falcon, who is by far the most expensive freelancer, but he will get the job done basically no matter what, you know, etc., etc. And each one of them will work for basically whomever, with a few exceptions. Like, obviously, Falcon would probably never take a job from the Nook Mafia, for example. And we'd probably have Mute City there. Mute City is in F-Zero. Like, have one city... No, not a city. Make it like a space station. And that's basically the F-Zero terrain. That would be, you know, that would be this, based on the, I think it's Mute City. And that would be, like, the hub, like, the neutral hub, the Omega equivalent from Mass Effect. And yes, he can have his Falcon Punch. But that would be like the neutral hub place, right? I'm trying to think of a good equivalent. I don't know, the Tatooine? I don't know, something like that. This has been a long question, hasn't it? Now, we haven't really addressed Pokemon. I still like your idea about Ultra Space, making Ultra Space being basically a pocket, basically a way of transit, you know, a way to go quickly from point A to point B. Yeah, like Nowhere in MCU. That's actually a great example of that. Punch-Out? I can't think of anything for Punch-Out. Come on. Punch-Out, okay, boxing. There is a boxing league. There you go. There's Punch-Out. And all sorts of people, different people interact with it. Non-humans. I mean, they already have Donkey Kong in a Punch-Out game. I think we could stretch that. Have a good trip, Cadet. Bayonetta? No. I'm really torn on Pokemon, because there's actually basically infinite options when it comes to Pokemon. The setting is fairly high-tech, and Pokemon themselves slot neatly into virtually any situation. So that can go basically wherever, right? Like, it would be really, really easy for Pokemon to fit anywhere within this setting. That's kind of why I mentioned earlier, I like the idea that Pokemon, there's no Pokemon world, just Pokemon are everywhere. Like, there's Pokemon on Planet X, on Hyrule, on Fungia, on the Corellian systems, you know? Or Cornelian systems, you know? Oh, no, it's Corellia. No, it is Cornelia. Sorry, Cornelia. Corneria! Because there's Cornelia, Corneria, Corneria, and Corellia. Damn it! But yeah, like, exactly, to quote it. Like, there's just Pokemon basically wherever. And don't actually explain where the heck the Pokemon actually came from. And because I like doing this, we would have to come up with some explanation under the hood for explaining where the Pokemon came from and why. As an aside, my first automatic thought, the Chozo built them. The Chozo, I mean, think about this for a second. The Chozo were ludicrously advanced, right? Ridiculously technologically advanced. And magically advanced, actually, too. They actually had literal Magitech in the Metroid setting. I like the idea that the Chozo built the Pokemon, not to be superpowered, not like they built the Metroids, but instead they built them to be pacifist, effectively. They built them to be these things that would have, you know, this aura that I've talked about before, which just makes people more positively inclined towards each other wherever they are. Or maybe they don't even do that at all, and they just built them because they wanted cute pets. I don't know. But either way, I like the idea that the Chozo built, constructed, crafted the Pokemon. Yeah, exactly, Leandro. Ditto could literally have been based on the X-Parasite. Eggs. Ah, sorry. Oh, Bragman, you've missed so much stuff. You need to watch the VOD of this. What's your input? Once you watch the VOD. Cute pets that can destroy worlds. Sure! I mean, this is the Chozo we're talking about. If I'm being honest, I still like the idea that Pokemon are not as strong as they're sometimes portrayed to be. Like, for example, the fact that, you know, Pokemon's like, ah, Thunder! And I say hi to Krenzler. Hi, Krenzler. And then Thunder is actually like just a little bit of a jolt. Like, this super powerful attack is basically just like a little bit of bzz. I still like that approach to Pokemon, and I have to be honest, I'd probably do that here too. Because, A, that would fit the Chozo, and B, it just makes more sense in general as far as I'm concerned. So, my take on that. Yeah, exactly, Mandartin. It's predicated on the idea that Pokemon aren't actually doom death machines of destruction that they are sometimes portrayed as. Inconsistently. So, I think that's actually everything. We've covered a whole lot of stuff, even stuff I wasn't originally covering. We haven't really decided who would be the Smash League. Who would be the members of the Smash League? Do Pokeballs work on Metroids? No. In fact, I like the idea that there's like a little mini story arc somewhere about people who specifically designed Pokeballs to work on Metroids. And that experiment goes really badly. And that just goes to hell. I already talked about Captain Falcon. I already talked about F-Zero. Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about who would be part of the... Okay, so yeah, Captain Falcon, I agree. Captain Falcon would be there. Meta Knight. Link, Mario are kind of obvious choices here. Samus, I agree with that completely. We could actually go quite a ways with this, but I want to keep this small. We could just stop here. I mean, this is 5 people. This is a decent team. Hey, McCool. DDD? I like the idea more that DDD's kind of doing his own thing, like the Doctor Strange parallel. But of course, DDD will work with the Smash League when needed. He's just not formally a part of it. Honestly, I like the idea of stopping here with, like, the core group. That this is the central group of the Smash League. And then over time, people can then be attached as the league slowly grows. And we can add people like Zelda being a part of the league, Fox being a part of the league. I like the idea of Professor Oak actually joining the league, as weird as that may sound. Not as someone who's actually like a fighter, but someone who's a brain. I guess actually Hawanta says Professor Oak could literally be the man in the chair. Bowser shows up every now and again. Roar! Roar! It wouldn't be a finale without Bowser! Yeah, exactly. It's not a real seat cleanser. It's just, hi, DDD. Professor Oak just shows up. Are you a boy or a girl? Shh. Professor, we've been working together for 15 years now. No. Oh, actually, I gotta be honest. I really like the idea. No, Roaring. I really like the idea that Waluigi and Wario are some of the attached members of the league. Like, they don't actually do much. They're not professional members of the league. But after Waluigi's story arc, when he becomes a member of Star Fox, he then gets like an honorary position or like a tier 3 position on the league, and he's just like, wah, because he's so happy about it. Oh yeah, we didn't discuss Mega Man. Oh jeez, I don't know. Okay, hang on. All right, so in actual Mega Man continuity, as of about Mega Man 3, actually, the people on Earth are already a system-wide power. Some of you may not be aware that several of the levels in Mega Man 3 are actually not on planet Earth. They're within the other planets of the system. So I like the idea of Mega Man basically being, I guess at this point, like a 5th power? Something like that? Because we've got the Hyrule Protectorate. We've got the Nook Mafia. We've got the Corporate Federation. We've got the Cornerian... Yes, right, I'm saying it right. Cornerian hegemony. And we've got the Space Pirates as kind of doing their own thing. Oh yeah, and we've got Sonic. I already mentioned Sonic as part of the Protectorate. See, Mega Man is kind of one of those... like, I don't want to go too third-party, because then it just keeps going without end. But Mega Man, I mean, let's be honest, Mega Man has been associated with Nintendo since forever, right? I mean... I think we can fairly safely say Mega Man is a Nintendo thing, even though it would be much harder to say, for example, that Castlevania is a Nintendo thing. I mean, 2 of the best Castlevania games ever made were not on Nintendo systems, for example. I wouldn't do Contra. I can't do anything with Contra. But, you're right, Takoida. It's funny, because we already put Robotnik into the Corporate Federation. And yet, you're absolutely right, it would fit even better. I don't want to add Final Fantasy to this, if I'm being honest. Like, I like combining things, but we do have to cut off after a certain point. So I'm willing to eject Mega Man. I was just trying to add another system-wide power, another group like the Cornerian hegemony with regards to the Mega Man stuff. But we can just eject it. We can just toss it out. Oh god, Takoida. You're right. You're absolutely right. Kid Icarus. Oh yeah. I never actually said what I wanted to do with Kid Icarus. I like the idea that Palutena is basically, let's call her a rival in Hyrule itself, right? that Palutena is someone who basically insists that she should be the ruler of Hyrule. And she's obviously not, and thus make her a regular antagonist and opposing force against the Hyrulean leadership. Not to the same extent as Ganon. Because, see, what we have here is we've got the actual Hyrule leadership under King Bob, I can't remember his name, is kind of like neutral-ish, right? They take care of their territories, but they also rip resources out of their territories, right? Like, they're basically a neutral kind of a situation. On the more negative side of things, we've got Ganondorf, which I already talked about his story arc, where he was someone who wanted to become more of a conquering power. He lost his civil war, and he left, and ended up joining the Space Pirates. So then, on the right side of this, and the more positively inclined, Palutena is someone who... yeah, exactly, Andrew. Palutena wants to be more of a positive influence. She wants to release the territories under the Hyrulean Protectorate's control, and at the same time offer their services to assist the other nations and the other worlds and the other systems throughout the territory. Thing is, that's actually not something that would really feasibly work in real life, which is why the king has basically said no so many times. You know, reality does not equate with what you want to do, Palutena, because she doesn't want to actually think about the practicality of making that actually work. She just likes the ideology of making that work. So she is then kind of a political/personal rival with the actual leadership of Hyrule, and someone who basically ends up sending her own agents, like Kid Icarus, in order to try and deal with this. Yeah, exactly. Idealism in a bad way. Exactly right. So Kid Icarus would then be her personal pet agent. I don't know what to call that. Her Mara Jade. And I just called Kid Icarus Mara Jade. Pit would be her Mara Jade, who would be someone who would run around constantly trying to, you know, serve her whims and weaken the Hyrulean infrastructure and political strength in order to try and allow Palutena to shift in, right? So that's what I would do with Kid Icarus. Oh, geez, I don't know, Zawan. I mean, yes, I actually know exactly what I would do. Story-wise, it would follow Fusion. It would follow the story of the Federation becoming, the Galactic Federation becoming the actual next villain. And those would be the bad guys. And the Space Pirates would be barely functional. There would be like 3 or 4 Space Pirate sects, cells, left in the galaxy, and each one of them is disparate and disconnected from each other. And they're falling apart, and they're just causing a mess wherever they are. And then, of course, the Federation is trying to crack down on everything, so you end up kind of fighting both the Space Pirates and the Federation in some territories. And I'd have you hop between planet to planet. First-person shooter, Metroid Prime style. Add new functionality. You know, it's been like 10 years. We can add new mechanics and new concepts to that kind of a thing. Yeah, that's where I would go with that, Zawan. I think that's good. I think we've built a nice Nintendo MCU. I do technically have one more question after this, but honestly, I think I'm going to not answer it right now because it's getting a little late. We could go and answer it. Maybe not. We're not adding Xenoblade. Xenoblade's not here. It's gone. It's dead. It's destroyed. Xenoblade. Hang on. Gotta kill a bug. Die. So Xenoblade was a world, but then that world died horribly. The end. That's Xenoblade's purpose in existing. Adventure Island was a world that died horribly. Everything died. Super dead. Yeah, the NGU, the Nintendo Gaming Universe. Hyrule destroyed Xenoblade. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Like, what if the Xenoblade... What if the giants of Xenoblade were... They weren't on some giant ocean field of stupid, but instead they were just floating in space, serving as... effectively serving as space stations, right? So each of the giants is floating through space, and each of them are causing issues and difficulties with each other, and we're basically making a mess of things. So Hyrule sent in their own forces and effectively destroyed both of the giants as a consequence of that conflict. That led to several of those people, including the Nopon, effectively being evacuated from the Xenoblade's giants and being distributed to the rest of the world. They have no world anymore. They have no home. You know, that kind of a thing. And I like the idea that at least pieces of the giants are left and are, you know, protected territories, and occasionally someone shows up and is like, hey, I'm going to steal stuff from you, you know, scavenging. robbing, that kind of thing. I think we could go that direction with it. Oh yeah, there you go, perfect. We could use one of the Xenoblade's heads as the F-Zero planet with Mute City built on it. The River City Ransom? Barf! Oh, sorry. Nope, Shadow Machine, nope. Waluigi has to join. Waluigi has to have a... You notice, of all of the characters we've talked about, Waluigi has the most significant character arc. Did you notice that? He starts off as a nobody. He's offered a job with the Mafia. He kind of screws that up, but he kind of struggles forward. Then he ends up getting this one big score with Wario, which leads to him getting just enough of recognition to join Star Fox, which allows him to actually carry out his ideal hero thing of being a hero of Star Fox, which eventually leads to him joining like a third or fourth section, of the Smash League and so forth and so on. Anyway, so Krenzler wants to add the Reploids. I've kind of accepted Mega Man being ejected from this. So what he's saying, I'll say this out loud. Reploids starting as part of the Federation when the Federation turns evil. Why would the Federation turn evil, though? They're just corporate. Tries to repurpose them into war machines. They split in two factions. Okay. Again, I'm accepting Mega Man being ejected because that's a slippery slope of hell. Oh, that's with regards to Metroid, Krenzler, not with regards to the NGU. I want to start using that term. Is that cool, guys? The NGU. Star Tropics. Star Tropics is a theater play which is performed by Koopas and Goombas on Fungia. Nevertheless, I like the idea, Krenzler, if we were going to do that. I'd have to think about how the Reploids would actually fit into the NGU, because I'm not sure. It's a good thought, though. Crystallis, also a play. Most NES games are just plays, and they're all performed. They do the circuit. They go around to the different systems, the different planets. And now for your viewing entertainment, Crystallis. It's Crystallis. Shut up. I think we could go ahead and cut that off. I do technically have one more question, but it was one that was asked just a couple days ago, so I don't mind sitting on it for a little bit. And we've been talking for a while. So I'm going to go ahead and do this thing where I chop off the local recording.